On the surface, Esoteric Ebb describes itself as an isometric CRPG, another Disco Elysium-like. But it's so much more than that. It's a game that's equal parts comedy, tragedy, and mystery. It's a game where you can talk a guard out of his weapon in one moment, and accidentally awaken the wrath of an ancient lich in the next. It's a game that views tired fantasy tropes through a kaleidoscope of new perspectives. It's a game about finding friendships in unusual places. Or maybe more than friendships. Eh? It's a game where you talk to yourself. A lot. But most of all, Esoteric Ebb is a game about persevering through incompetence, failing upwards. As the saying goes, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Today, we're going to explain why Esoteric Ebb is already our favorite game of the year, and why it might just become yours. As always, touching all the buttons down there and leaving a comment really helps, more than you know. If you want to support us on Patreon, channel memberships, or Ko-Fi like the brave champions here, we'll talk about that later in the video. But for now, it's time to don the iron helmet, prepare ye spells, and dive headfirst into the most surprising new RPG to come out this year.
My name is Boss Sauce.
And I'm Rolling Coons.
And together, we are the two-headed hero. Ever have a feeling that a game was made specifically for you? Of course, this is going to mean many different things for many different people.
I mean, even between the two of us, our tastes diverge pretty heavily. But we've always found some common ground in stat-heavy RPGs and the deep narratives, imaginative settings, and grand adventure that tend to go hand in hand.
Esoteric Ebb is one of those rare games that already checks off all the big surface-level boxes for us both. In the first hour of the game, you'll spend time carefully creating your very own incompetent cleric, a low-level government goon in the city of Norvik. You'll wrestle a zombie, partner up with a suave goblin handler, meet many strange, powerful, and terrible beings, and befriend them. Or not.
Short disclaimer. This is also one of those games that's really tough to talk about without spoiling anything. We will be discussing the setting and lore of the world at large, but we've taken great care to avoid any story spoilers or major surprises.
If anything feels borderline, I'm going to be blurring it out or covering it up somehow, with my own two little hands.
Just remember, if you see anything blurred out, it's a dick.
You won't see any reveals that weren't already in the game's trailers or the public demo. But you will probably see some of this game's fantastic artwork taken out of context. Moving along.
Esoteric Ebb begins with an ending. An armored figure slips into a watery abyss. This is you, and you're dead. Or at least you thought you were. Next thing you know, you're waking up on a slab. Your spellbook is ruined, your standard issue mace is long gone, even your bicycle key has been swept away by the river. But somehow, you live again!
Live again.
Right away, there's so many parallels with the opening scenes from another titan of the RPG pantheon, Planescape Torment.
Updated my journal.
This isn't even a stretch. Torment is prominently featured in the game's credits, alongside Dungeons & Dragons, Disco Elysium, and Monkey Island. So I guess you could call this more of an homage.
As you shake the river water out of your ears, memories begin to trickle back into your brain. You're a cleric of Urth. Not the planet Earth, the god Urth. Urth. According to many, you're the very worst cleric as well. Maybe not stupid, necessarily, but at least incompetent in most ways.
Except for your one special talent. The cleric is a magical savant, specialized in dealing with the many different ways Esoterica expresses itself throughout the realm. For an unknown reason, you're able to grasp magic much more quickly than the average human. You can pick up most spells by simply finding a scroll or reading about it in a book. This means it's possible for the cleric to easily attune to different schools of magic like druidism, necromancy, and the like, in a matter of minutes rather than a matter of decades.
Then you remember something even more important. Your task, which you are incredibly ill-prepared for, is to find out what happened to the tea house that blew up just 1 week before the first ever election in Norvik. An election that will have untold, sweeping effects on the realm. And it's coming up in only 6 days. Wait, 5 days? Oops.
If you've got a keen eye, you might have noticed a ton of small invisible dice rolls within every dialogue. That's because each conversation is filled with tons of tiny checks against the cleric's core stat block. The game places a character sheet up front, which instantly puts you into the tabletop headspace. This is a tradition long held from classic CRPGs that we continue to see in more modern titles. Here, in a move close to Disco Elysium, the first conversation in the game opens with an internal dialogue.
Unlike most RPGs, your character stats each have a distinct personality, each vying to be heard in every situation. And overall, the effect is closer to having an entire adventuring party in your head at all times. Some of the best and funniest moments in the game occur when these are in conflict. Your tendency towards aggression and machismo, your strength, might be at odds with, say, your compassion and empathy, your wisdom, and so on, causing lengthy arguments within the confines of that iron helmet.
It's important to note that the game leans on these attribute scores heavily throughout every encounter, your lowest and highest stats being especially formative. The player gets clued into this little quirk by a direct narration from the dungeon master, also the game's developer, and this does much to put you even further into the game's tabletop mindset. Esoteric Ebb is like playing an intimate, carefully constructed piece of homebrew, and we're going to see this theme repeating throughout the entire experience.
Once the cleric takes his first steps off the slab, you'll probably start to notice a few familiarities. Actually, a lot of them. Hit points, spell slots, proficiencies. 20-sided dice are rolled against tasks with set difficulty levels, with a 20 being a critical success and a 1 heralding doom. As is tradition.
D&D tradition. In a post-Baldur's Gate 3 world, this is well-worn territory.
Witnesses.
I mean, compare this generic D&D character sheet to the one that you get in Ebb. You see where we're going with this. I'm about 99% sure this game is based on a modified version of the Dungeons & Dragons SRD, the open source system reference document. Basically, it's white label D&D with the serial numbers filed off. Some great games have been made with the SRD in the past, but Esoteric Ebb takes this framework, known and beloved by tabletop nerds for decades, and twists them around like a string of jor.
The cleric navigates the city of Norvik with a simple point-and-click interface. Tapping on a hotspot lets you choose to behold, engage, or trifle with whatever you might happen to have under your cursor. Attempting the ocular pat-down on a citizen rolls against their dominant stat.
Yeah, I did an ocular pat down and I cleared him.
I'm sorry?
Success comes in various degrees, and high rolls can net you some valuable info on their background, mannerisms, and maybe even their motivations. Useful for when you move to engage them in conversation or in combat. Trifling is a straight-up thieving attempt, sometimes attached to a hefty dexterity roll, sometimes carrying dire or hilarious results for failure. Through these 3 simple actions, you'll embark upon a twisting, turning quest to find out what happened to the tea shop that blew up.
Quests and progression work much differently here than in D&D. Every quest in the game is slowly revealed on the quest map as you encounter it. This works in the vein of the Disco Elysium thought cabinet, where touching on the same theme a certain number of times, or following a subplot to its logical end can unlock and complete a quest. Once completed, you'll gain a significant experience bonus and the opportunity to argue with yourself, choosing between several powerful feats that can be swapped out at nearly any time.
The game also doles out small experience rewards all the time, mostly for uncovering new information or overcoming challenges. Reinforcing your beliefs is its own reward, since the experience multiplier increases each time you resolve a situation with the same phrases and responses. Gathering enough XP results in a level up, which in turn raises your hit points, spell slots, and recovery dice, and allows you to increase a core stat by 1.
So what does that all boil down to? Basically, it means that your dialogue choices inform your character growth to a large degree, but you still have the agency to change the shape of your character build as you level up. It's an approach I don't think I've ever seen in another game anywhere else.
But chasing down those sweet XP, those sweet experience points isn't without risk. Testing yourself against the traps of the city below, failing to charm that zombie in the very first room, or even stepping off a ladder too quickly can tear your health bar down with alarming speed. The cleric can even be injured during a casual conversation by taking emotional damage.
Emotional damage!
Just try flirting with that divine being and see where it gets you.
Your training as an arcane cleric primarily lies in investigation and de-escalation. These are citizens of your city, and you're sworn to protect them, but not all of them feel the same way about you. Violence is seen as a last resort in the cleric's handbook, so each and every battle is custom-tailored to match this gravitas. During combat, a turn order appears at the top of the screen, and you'll roll for initiative. That's how you know things got serious.
Once a fight begins, your favorite brain buddies present some possible actions, and you'll get to decide how you react to the threat while managing your hit points and spell slots. Even skirmishes against the weakest enemies feel like life and death struggles, and facing down a powerful foe with a full party of heroes is an epic tale worthy of song. Every swing of your fist, every monster's bite, every grievous wound is described in excruciating detail. When your companions are able to assist, they also jump in to deal some damage, help you avoid some, or provide an advantage to one of your future actions. A few of your spells are combat ready as well. There's a certain satisfaction in whipping out the right spell at the right time during the right encounter to stop a fight in its tracks. Feels like stumbling on a cheat code.
Yeah, it's the same feeling you get when you're like, I'm smarter than the game.
The game wants you to feel smarter than it, yes.
The game wants you to feel smarter than you are. Fighting is just one of the countless ways that the cleric can really, truly die. We're talking game over screen here, and there are several situations where you will not have a chance to recover. In RPGs like this, all rolls are theoretically possible, and the urge to
Save scum
hovers in the shadows like a hungry specter, tugging at your mouse, looking out your closet door. But while Esoteric Ebb provides the means to scum its encounters, it's often way more fun to roll with your mistakes, even when they turn deadly, just to see how things turn out. Rolling those tragic natural ones and thrilling nat 20s goes far towards emulating the big swings of an engaging tabletop campaign. And there's several safeties in place to discourage a scummy playthrough.
Failed actions become locked, but can be attempted again by taking a rest or simply consuming shards of jor, small pieces of esoteric stone found scattered all over the city. I was walking around with about a dozen or so of these at any given time. You can also play dress up a bit to help fudge the outcomes with gear bonuses if you have an idea of what kind of challenge you'll be facing.
It's another spot where that behold skill comes in real handy. Royally screwing up and losing all your hit points will force a death save. Losing a fight to a skeleton can result in death saves. Opening a door can result in death saves. These work a bit differently than the Dungeons & Dragons counterpart. In Ebb, you keep on rolling death saves until you succeed or fail 3 times. 3 successes brings you right back into the action with a single hit point, but you gain exhaustion, a status effect that decreases your dice rolls by 1 for every level of exhaustion that you carry. 3 failures means that the skeleton warrior is going to show you your insides. Game over. But whether you die trying to pickpocket a mushroom, or at the broken point of a skeleton's sword, each glorious demise is treated with just as much narrative pomp as the next, and dying offers up some of the game's funniest moments.
Outside of encounters, you can choose to spend a precious hour or 2 on a short rest to recover some health and exhaustion. Food and spell recovery items are also cheap and plentiful. Why is this an important distinction? Well, it places an emphasis on surviving the encounters and making moment-to-moment decisions, rather than managing resources in the long term.
There's honestly a boggling number of items, equipment, trinkets, and weapons to sort through. Even here, the game carries its peculiar charm. Everything is held within your pouch of holding, and even in the rare instance that you come across a functional weapon, the cleric only uses it as window dressing, sticking to his spells and fists when violence is unavoidable. Inventory management is a little unwieldy due to all the scrolling involved and the sheer number of items on offer. More than a few of these curios are simply there for flavor or have a single use before they're resigned to taking up bag space, which makes it tougher to pick through and find the ones that you do use frequently. Categories help a little bit, and there's a deep storage option to stow items you don't plan on touching again, but honestly, it would have been nicer to just have the pouch take up more screen real estate.
But what do you think is the player's most important resource in Esoteric Ebb? No, it's not hit points, it's not spell slots, it's not even information. It's time. The hard deadline of Election Day looms only 6 days away. Fortunately, time only moves when the cleric is actually doing something. Whether it's holding a conversation, climbing a ladder, or picking a pocket, each action is costing you precious minutes. Certain buildings close in the evening or only open at night. Certain encounters only appear at a certain time. Esoteric Ebb's open-ended approach makes it entirely possible to do things out of the intended order or even miss encounters entirely, which makes it all the more impressive that the game accounts for this. It's like playing an immersive storybook where the world constantly reacts to your choices.
It's also very easy to lose track of time when you're embroiled in a deep conversation. I spent upwards of a real Half-Life hour. Welcome to the Real Half-Life Hour starring Gordon Freeman. I spent upwards of a real-life half hour talking to a halfling scholar about philosophy and politics, and once I stepped outside of his office, I saw that the sun had already set. The pressure of a deadline means thinking tactically about how time is spent, and it also provides a lot of replay value. This game is explicitly designed so that no one can find every secret or complete every quest in a single run, and it's all the better for it.
The city of Norvik is fairly open from day one, but there are a few guardrails in place to keep you from tapping into some of the late-game locations right off the bat. Some of these are physical barriers, others are plot devices. Esoteric Ebb subscribes to the balloon animal model of choices matter, TM gaming, which is just fine by me, but it basically means that the major plot lines circle around in such a way that you'll be hitting the same points on each playthrough, no matter what flavor cleric you choose to play.
With these exceptions in mind, the cleric is free to explore the city of Norvik from top to bottom to underneath. Most of the time you'll be making your way around Norvik with a slow jog. There's not really an option for fast travel until much later, and it's pretty limited regardless. This rack of bicycles taunts you with its wheelie goodness, but it's useless due to the large number of stairways scattered around the town. Structurally, Norvik lies upon several layers of ancient ruins, all of which surround the Pillar of Jor, and all of which were built by long-dead civilizations.
Tolstad, the topside level, is where you'll find businesses, administrative offices, and amenities like the port. Goblins and other creatures live near Pillar Crossing, one level down, precariously close to the city below. A huge, shifting dungeon full of tunnels, traps, and untold horrors. Beneath this labyrinth lies the Undercoast Path, a dangerous mess of cursed ruins that lies within reach of a gravitational abyss.
It's interesting to see that Norvik basically takes on the same structure popularized by Diablo.
Hello, my friend. Stay a while and listen.
You got a town on top and a great mass of shifting dungeons underneath. The game's emphasis on magical phenomenon and memorable characters also echoes back to Sigil, the central city in the Planescape universe. Or is it Sigil? No one can ever tell me.
There's no way to know.
Does it rhyme with vigil or does it rhyme with giggle?
Or both.
Updated my journal.
With such a fascinating setting to explore, it's a shame that navigation is such a pain in the ass. There's a map, but it's this. A JPEG file with a couple points of interest marked on it for each section. There's plenty of areas that have no map whatsoever, and since you can't make your own marks on it, it's pretty hard to remember where certain characters might be hanging out by the end of the game.
Likewise, the journal doesn't do a thing to track quest progress or conversations, only the tidbits of information you've picked up about the world and its lore. You'd think something as majestic as the quest map might do such a thing, but it mostly just tracks where you've been, not where you need to go. With so much reading and so many characters, this is easily a 30-hour game, despite anything that Time to Beat might have to say about it. and by the end you'll be mentally juggling a lot of facts and faces if you intend to tie up the loose ends. There were a couple of moments where I was kicking myself for not whipping out a pen and paper to note the location of a secret or an important quest NPC, so you might want to keep that handy for your own run. It wouldn't be the first time that a dungeon master punished my character for lack of note-taking. At least it folds back into the tabletop feel of the game, right?
There's one thing CRPGs will always have over tabletop games: the graphics. There's no question, Esoteric Ebb is a beautiful game with a distinctive art style. The citizens of Norvik, the beasts of the city below, each one is lovingly rendered, and in conversation, you'll often see detailed, hand-drawn portraits that gush with personality. This is the kind of game that earns the term screenshot candy. Every frame looks like it was lifted straight out of a comic book and painted across your screen.
I do want to ask you, since you're the art-knowing guy, what artist would you say that this would remind you of, even?
I believe that it is based off the works of Mobius. It's a French guy.
Of course.
Jean Girard. Or Girard.
Jean
Giraud.
Giraud. Oh, Fifth Element. Storyboarded Alien and Tron and the Abyss, huh? Wow. Okay, interesting.
That said, there's a couple minor issues. Other than the UI being occasionally messy and the map being pretty but functionally useless, sometimes a door does not look like a door. This mostly occurs with secret doors that have already been opened, since the fog of war returns once you leave those hidden rooms.
I spent a bit too long walking around in circles and annoying rolling cones on Discord just because I mistook an entryway for a shadow. Having some kind of door highlight or just removing the fog of war once a secret area is discovered would easily fix this very minor issue.
Minor issue indeed. My UI pet peeve. I have a tendency to try to do everything
100% run.
In order to do that 100% style run, you have to swap gear a whole bunch. It's just that the icons are a little bit larger in your inventory than they maybe need to be, and it means that you're gonna have to be scrolling a whole bunch when you're swapping gear. You don't have to play the game like that. You don't have to play the game like the guy that tries to pick up every apple in Skyrim. But as that guy, it was still an incredible game and worth every second.
Esoteric Ebb instantly redeems itself from these minor quibbles with some crazy good music. An emotive soundtrack mixing minimalist synthwave with fantasy themes, death metal drums, and what the fuck is happening with that credit roll song? No idea, but I think I like it. Few sound effects are scattered throughout the game, but what's in there is impactful enough. It's mostly notable during spell casting and encounters. The grease spell has a really good goopy quality, for example. There's no dialogue voiceover, and I do think that makes sense here. You'd be spending a few $100,000 on voice actors just to nail down the performances for something like this. Better to leave it out completely than to half-ass it, I say. And I'm really glad they didn't try to bridge that gap with slop-bot performances or something. Weirdly enough, though, on a closer look in the credits, there's a whole page of voice actors listed. I'm guessing that's maybe for the small barks that you'll hear during conversations with some of the citizens. Which I thought was a pretty fitting compromise. Adds a little emotional juice to each scene.
The shining jewel of the Esoteric Ebb experience lies within its brilliant writing. The utter care placed in the descriptive text alone is top fucking notch, and the internal dialoguing with your stats makes you feel like you have a whole dysfunctional D&D party living inside your head. But the biggest standout has to be the characters. Each one is incredibly memorable, dripping with personality, and I just wanted to crawl inside and live in every single cozy dialogue tree. Your interviews with political leaders and ancient creatures alike manage to reframe complex themes of ideology, theology, and philosophy in a way that comes across as digestible and interesting, instead of stodgy or preachy. Or sometimes a mushroom man will tip his little hat and say, "Prrr."
These wild swings between whimsy and thoughtfulness also extend to the cleric, who often reads like an awkward, goofy virgin. I mean, I guess this makes sense. He's a member of the clergy after all, and as a player, you do have a good amount of agency of what he actually says to the citizens of Norvik. Maybe I just read like an awkward, goofy virgin. Running gags like the being polite lines or fumbling your attempts at romance or asking every single person who they're voting for in the election can lead to some fun rewards if you decide to chase them through the entire game. And while it's great to watch the cleric dance along like a puppet on a string due to your increasingly bad choices, every personal revelation about his past and upbringing drops a brick of melancholy straight into the pit of your stomach. There are so many wonderful conversational nuggets that it would be impractical to list them here, and honestly cruel to spoil them. And then you'd miss the joy of finding them all for yourself.
Speaking of joy, bad segue here, but we're about to dive deeper into the setting and lore. Now, like we mentioned, this is a spoiler-free review. No main story plot developments in here are from the full version of the game, and it's all been checked against the most recent demo content just to make sure. But if you'd really like to go in blind and experience all of Esoteric Ebb for yourself, this is your warning. You can skip ahead to our final thoughts, or take a trip round the pillar to our Patreon page. Supporters get some little perks like exclusive podcast videos and special Discord roles, and it's cheap as 1 Norvikian crown a month, which is apparently $1 with the current exchange rate. So if you value what we do in our little corner of the internet, step through those tavern doors at patreon.com/twoheadedhero and warm yourself by the cozy fireplace.
All right. Let's continue. The setting and history of Esoteric Ebb is a highly complex and rich subject, and it requires at least a surface-level understanding of the world to truly appreciate the impact on the plot. It feels like you could write a master's thesis on the vast amount of lore and history contained here, but we're going to do our best to break it down in a couple of paragraphs.
Ebb takes place on a uniquely magical world, where a powerful mage named Jor has compressed ley lines into several massive pillars that run through the planet. All living things are attached to smaller offshoots of these lines that run through space and time in a massive web called the Strings of Jor. And through trial, error, and effort, powerful mages learned to manipulate these strings to grand and terrifying effect. This manipulation is often referred to as esotery.
Or, in the game, it's referred to as esoteric bullshit. Like, pretty often.
Quite often.
After several dark ages under this powerful magocracy, a final, terrifying war ended up destroying most of humanity. Magic ran wild, splitting the world into bands. With their homelands lost, one tribe of humans led by the living god, Urth, made a perilous journey to the realm of Ascan in order to find a new home, establishing the city-state of Norvik on top of the ruins of an ancient civilization. Unfortunately, with the new colony came new neighbors, and naturally, this led to a series of conflicts. In the end, scores of sentient races were unable to withstand the awesome might of the living god, and had no choice but to bend the knee. Out of all the species subjugated by humanity, the goblin tribes suffered the greatest losses, having been whittled down to only 3 factions that managed to bargain for their continued existence under the controversial leader, Cran.
But then the living god, Urth, managed to perform a final act, one that carried the gravest consequences. 27 years before the cleric's birth, he died. The passing of a living god left a power vacuum in the city of Norvik. Earthguard paladins and Norvikian magistrates are now vying to retain control, while a dwarven labor party, the Asgalites, have slowly gained momentum with the lower classes. Members of the Free Striders, a burgeoning capitalist movement controlled by foreign interests, have been slowly buying up chunks of the city piecemeal. Smaller factions like the Druids, Agrarians, and even the Arcanists began to imagine a Norvik shaped to their own ideals. Norvik is a political powder keg, and right in the middle of that powder keg, a tea shop blew up.
This brings us to the cleric's formidable, nearly impossible task, finding out what happened to the tea shop that blew up. An explosion right outside the Goblin District 1 week before Election Day doesn't exactly scream coincidence. And it's also no coincidence that you'll be paired up with Snell early on, a cunning, highly professional right-hand man that provides a whole new perspective on the human-goblin dynamic.
While Cran and Urth have passed into history, the plight of the goblins is central to Esoteric Ebb's rich, thoughtful storyline. They're a prideful people, struggling to survive in a city that seems to continually press its boot into their necks. A new leader, Lady Sageleaf, has proven herself to be ruthless and resourceful over the past few decades. She's a tiny yet terrifying figure who will stop at nothing to get answers about the tea house incident, and she's quick to press you into her service using intimidation alone. No wonder she's known as the Dragon of Talstad.
No wonder she made me cry and hide in a barrel.
Yeah, I did also end up running for an hour into the darkness.
I rolled a nat 1.
I did too!
That's great. That's amazing. But your investigation quickly runs into roadblocks. The magistrate in charge delays meeting with you, even in light of your unlikely resurrection. His angelic bodyguard ignores your requests to enter the crime scene. It's almost as if someone doesn't want this mystery to be solved. Thus begins your first step into a conspiracy that will shake the pillars of Jor down to its foundations.
Esoteric Ebb is a rare find. Titles like this don't come around often. Other reviews have called it a worthy successor to Planescape Torment and Disco Elysium alike, and while I can appreciate that, this game stands alone as its own special thing. Very few experiences manage to replicate that unique tabletop feel as well as Esoteric Ebb. Even fewer games manage to attain its careful balance of thoughtfulness and mirth. What we get here is a true dramedy, with laugh-out-loud moments, tear-jerking revelations, and musings on the nature of mankind that will keep you thinking long after the credits roll.
Thank you for watching. Whew, that was kind of a long one. Good thing there's no other big RPGs dropping this month, right? Well, shit. Big shout out to all the brave heroes that gather around the tavern over on Patreon.
Wolfgang Bristol,
Adam Uselman,
Amelie McNamara,
James Blake,
Jaroslaw Rybaki,
Jim DiFrancesco,
Vulpes,
Cameron Frement,
Dominic Nguyen,
John Williams,
Mahogany God King,
and the rest. If you're still here, thank you all so much for the support. We've lost a few Patreons lately, and times are understandably tough out there in the waking hellscape we call life. So anything you decide to donate really helps us out far more than you know. But if you're unable to toss a couple of Norvikian crowns our way this time, you can really help us out by hitting all the buttons down there, mashing a little comment in that little text box, and shaking that algorithm box like a... Shaking that algorithm box.
Shake that algorithm box.
Shake that algorithm box. Shake it.
Hey,
shake
get
it,
that
baby.
algorithm box over here.
And shaking that algorithm like a newborn babe.
More videos just like this are going to be popping up on the screen right now. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next Two-Headed Hero.